bit smaller than yours. A little bit.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Can you imagine yourself in a time where you have nothing but the things that you create yourself? Surviving only on your hard work and dedication. Homesteading is largely seen as a residence for a family, but homesteading is a lifestyle, one of sustainability, resilience, and independence. Now, I have grown to see the importance of learning these things, such as independence, sustainability, and reliance myself, growing up on a farm, and watching and studying my ancestors who did the same thing to survive. Now, we have to start somewhere to learn about American homesteading. And in the early time of America, we start with the indigenous Americans, and I've gathered this information from the National Park Service article titled "The Dust of Many Hard-Fought Fields." In the early American homesteading, the indigenous Americans used techniques such as slash and burn agriculture, where they would cut down trees and burn them to add nutrients to the soil. They would farm that for a while and move to another forest to cut it down and burn its nutrients and let the other field grow back. They also used intertillage, which is like farm rows, crop rows, to make it easier to weed and control their crops. In the 17th century, early colonists adapted with the indigenous people with intertillage, but also came up with crop hills, where the hills were loosened, the dirt, they planted their seeds, and when the seeds sprouted, they put another top layer on top of it to help with drainage and weed control. They did not focus as much on weeding, but focused on keeping it irrigated. In the 18th century, the colonists came up with a new technique called field rotation, which is a lot like the slash and burn rotation, but instead of cutting down trees and burning them, they planted clover to add nutrients to the soil. Now, with this, the government saw a need with time to grow this homesteading to help produce more food for the American people. And this demand caused the government to look for expansion westward. And this next slide has information gathered from the Bureau of Land Management that they put out a timeline that includes the following homesteading acts. It started in 1862 with the Homesteading Act that granted citizens 160 acres as long as they could live and cultivate it for 5 years. In 1909, they enlarged the Homesteading Act to give out 320 acres of Great Plains land. This land was difficult as it was hard to irrigate and cultivate the land. As American people continued to increase, in 1916, the United States saw a need to increase the land to 640 acres to raise stock and cattle. This was all very difficult, and in total, the United States gave away 10% of their land, which totaled approximately 270 million acres, as we can see in this chart. But homesteading was very difficult, and while living in these lands, they had to build sod houses for themselves. Usually it was a 12-foot by 14-foot building made out of soil-packed bricks. And they used two main types of farming, which was plows and ranching. Now, it was very difficult, like I said, which led to a lot of difficulties and environmental challenge, which led to the decline of homesteading, like the Dust Bowl. But a number of the factors that are shown in the next slide are detailed by the Environmental Council in an article called "How Did the Dust Bowl Affect Agriculture?" Now, the Dust Bowl And over-farming was caused from the prairie lands ripping up the grass and turning it into topsoil, leaving dirt and soil unprotected. Many tractors and combines were used to speed up this process and cause lots of wind. In World War I, there was a demand for wheat, and this led to a monoculture farming, which was a rotation of the same crop over and over on the same field, which led to faster and faster erosion, leaving more and more dirt and less nutrition in the land. With this came lots of large winds, blowing lots of dust into the air, causing large lands of acreage to be covered in dust, blocking out the sun, killing out crops, and also suffocating cattle. It also covered the equipment, making it harder for farmers to even homestead in the first place, which left them to foreclose on the land and have a mass exodus to the west. This led to larger cities, less homesteading, and a decline in sustainability. But in the 21st century, the Cornell Cooperative Extension gave us some more information regarding urban homesteading or modern homesteading, which was a focus on self-sufficiency and sustainability. This was less reliant on commercial farming, and land size was not the immediate matter in the homestead. Because of modern technologies such as substrate cultivation systems, which is farming on top of each other, so it would be able to be done in a tighter, compact space, like in an apartment or in an urban setting. Hydroponic systems were also used so that soil was not needed and the plants could be grown in the water system. Hydroponic systems can also be used in a substrate cultivation system to sustain itself, so we can become more sustainable and self-sufficient. Now, in conclusion, we can gain knowledge from the history of homesteading and be more self-reliant and sustain our lives through learning the methods of homesteading, from the beginning with the pioneers to the expansion of what was done and the decline to our modern era of self-sufficiency. Thank you.